Welcome to episode 105 of the Lowdown Radio Show presented by advrider.com. I'm Neil Graham. This week, something a little different. US 129 just may be the most famous motorcycle road in the world. Of course, you and I know it as the tail of the dragon, 300 and something curves jammed into 11 short miles. Today we talk to Darryl Cannon, the photographer behind killboy.com, the company who takes all those roadside photos that you can buy once you get back home to prove that you rode the road. Well, Darryl's the first to admit it's an odd business. But think of this. For 25 years, thousands of motorcyclists have ridden by his lens. Is anyone better equipped to discuss everything from riding technique to the trends and fads that we motorcyclists follow more than Darryl? And if you're planning to ride the dragon this season, we get his tips on when to go and how best to give ourselves a fighting chance of coming out the other end. This and more on the Lowdown Radio Show. Darryl, let's start off with a basic question, and we can't assume that everyone knows about this particular road. So tell me, what is the tail of the dragon?
The tail of the dragon. Well, it's become kind of legendary, I guess, but it boils down to it's just a section of a federal highway that's pretty unique. It's not so unique in that it's curvy. There's a lot of curvy roads, although not always federal highways, but what makes it unique is that it borders the Great Smoky Mountains National Park on one side, and it's a nature conservancy on the other side, meaning that the entire length of the road is devoid of people, businesses, other than the photography stuff, which we'll get into why that's allowed.
Yep.
But it's that it's curvy, but also that it's isolated, and you do not have to concern yourself, especially as a motorcycle rider, but as an enthusiast of a road in general, of other traffic coming in and out, disturbing other people driving through a neighborhood or anything like that. And it has a lot of camaraderie aspect where at the end we have the stores where people come to hang out. And I think that's something that's pretty rare on a curvy road, is a very well-established area to sort of mingle with fellow enthusiasts. You can go out and ride your road, but then when you get done, you're just kind of moseying on to the next place. But yeah, it's a 11-mile section of US Highway 129 that starts at the border of North Carolina and Tennessee and goes into Tennessee, 11 miles. And it's claimed to be 318 turns in 11 miles. We have tried to count that, and we end up at around 200 being loose with the counting. So we're not sure where the number actually came from, but it sticks, and it's been on t-shirts and stickers now, but it's pretty well known around the world, and it's pretty well received considering how hyped it is.
There's a question there. I want to get a little bit more into the road in a second, but does the road live up to the hype?
The road it surprisingly seems to exceed people's expectations. I sit there on the porch and people don't know who I am sometimes, and I can listen to people's reactions, from the first time going through, and they're like, just astounded. They thought it would never end. They were like, we're halfway through it. I'm like, does this thing ever stop? So in a world where we're easily, disappointed, things are overhyped and things like that, as much hype as this road gets, negative and positive, but people know that it's supposed to be something special when they show up, and they come expecting that, and to be as surprised and satisfied as they seem to be for the most part. You'll hear a lot of people on the internet grumble and do the thing that people do on the comments, but sitting there in person, seeing people's and hearing people's reactions, they seem to be really impressed with it. The pavement's good. The people, for the most part, act right and accommodating, using all the pull-offs. You've been there a few times, right?
I have never been on the road. I've been in that region many times.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, whether it was time or I think I may have also too, may have been something else at work, which is I think because of the hype around the road, I thought it was just going to be people going balls to the wall.
And a madhouse. A lot of people think that it's always busy, and it's not.
It's not, right.
Obviously, there's a window there on midday Friday, midday Saturday, where it's very busy, and it's a And it's not a time necessarily to avoid it. You just have to be in the right mindset. It's a cool time to get out there and see what's happening, and maybe not be on the road as much as be observing what's on the road. You can go to one of the pull offs, but what I was getting at with that question was the people who have been there, I'll ask them this, and they're always surprised by this little piece of trivia. It's an 11-mile section of federal highway, and I will ask them, how many paved pull-offs do you think there are in that 11-mile section? And most people are like, I don't know, 10 or 20, maybe 30. There's 105 paved pull-offs in that 11 miles.
Well, let's get to that in a minute, but I want to back up just a little bit. When did you first become aware of this road? Obviously, how far away did you grow up from this road?
Well, I grew up in Middle Tennessee, which is about 2 hours away. But at the time that I discovered this road, I was actually living in Eastern North Carolina. We were on the other side of Raleigh, area called Rocky Mount. And I had just gotten a sport bike for the first time in my life. I'd ridden some dirt bikes when I was younger, and had a dirt bike. And I was riding with some friends, and they were planning a trip to the Blue Ridge Parkway on the other end of the state. And we were starting to do some research, and I discovered this Tail of the Dragon thing. And I convinced them to come check it out while we're over here, but they weren't super interested. They were like, "We're more going for the Blue Ridge Parkway. That's like an hour and a half away from where we're going to be. It's going to be kind of a hassle to get over there." But we worked it in one of the days we were here, and we rode it for the first time. And it was 4 of us, and we all were like, that was the best part of the whole ride.
And now, what year would that have been?
It would have been like 96. I got like a 95 ZX 6R back around that time, brand new. First new vehicle I ever owned. And so coming over our first time. And I actually had like a camcorder on my tank from back in the day. We used to play around. I've been like playing around with video and photography before I really started this business.
Yes.
And I've got the video. I need to convert it to digital, but it was kind of comedic looking back, because I'm going into these turns that I'm now super comfortable with, but I'm like, it's one long turn, and I'm doing the thing where you're like, you don't really know what's going on. And
we call that an 11 apex corner.
Yeah, exactly. It's pretty comical looking back on it now, but it was a really good time, and it was decided that was probably the best part of the whole ride.
When you rode it 30 years ago, was the road as it was then, is it as now? Was it that popular? Was it a phenomenon? And do you know the history of the road in terms of when it became this real destination? Because I live, 1,500 miles away, and yet I know lots of people who that's where they go. They go to the Tail of the Dragon. It's one of those bucket list things. It's like riding a famous racetrack or climbing a mountain or something. I mean, when did it really take off as a destination?
Yeah, it was back in the early 90s. There was a growing, notoriety, but it was really not well known until there was a magazine article published about it, and I think that's when it sort of took off. So the early to mid 90s, and when we showed up, in the late 90s for it, it was definitely not that busy. Not as busy as it is now. The cat was coming out of the bag though, and I understand that people grumble about how busy it can be. They want to blame somebody, so they point the finger at me sometimes. But it's like, this was happening, and whether I did it or not, there's somebody's going to be in my position, and I hope that I'm doing as good of a job as I can to be a good steward to the area and use the popularity of our platform to promote sustainable enjoyment of the road. It's a big thing to me, and there's worse people out there that could be promoting it. So I hope that people see that it was going to happen. But the scene has definitely grown from where I was on it before, and the road was in good shape back then. And then they've repaved it twice since then, although there was a long period between the second and third paving that it got pretty rough for a little while. And there was some pretty, bad chunks and missing pieces of the road here and there.
Right.
But the scene has changed. It was, mostly sport bikes when we were first going. And then late 90s to 2000s, it was more like adventure and cruiser motorcycles were showing up. So it's about 50-50. And then for the past 10 years or so, the car scene has really blown up. So it's about 50-50 bikes and cars now.
Let's talk about your business, because of course that's why you're here. And you and I met at a recent event, and I tortured you with questions about it, which I thought were really fascinating. So how did you become a guy that's so associated as a photographer, as your business, killboy.com? How did you become who you are now? From that guy on your ZX6R, how did you get to this? Take me through that progression. How do you turn a road into a career?
Yeah, it's been a crazy ride. I didn't come into this with any kind of plan. I didn't get an education in business or photography. When I stumbled into this, I was working on shipping docks driving a forklift. I really enjoyed that job. I've worked retail and stuff like that. But from that first visit, I was really enamored with the road. And a few years after that, me and my family moved back to Middle Tennessee. So I was only 2 hours away. And I started coming out about every weekend, every other weekend. I would come out and ride. But I wouldn't really want to hang out at the overlook. It was very exposed to the sun, and I was kind of, fair skinned, redhead. So I was kind of ride some, and then I'd hang out on one of the turns in the shade and kind of take a break or something, or down at the store. But the place I was working, I ended up winning like a $400 gift certificate to Circuit City for on the job attendance or something like that. And didn't really know what to get. And I thought, it'd be cool to have like a digital camera to record, take some snaps of what I'm doing on the motorcycle. Like I said, I dabbled in video and setting up cameras. We would use bullet cams, run to camcorders and put them like on the forks and things like that.
Yeah.
480p quality video. But yeah, I snagged this point and shoot digital camera when digital cameras were first coming out. 2 megapixel or whatever it is, or photo quality. But I would just ride around and get some shots. And I was also into video gaming at the time, and I picked up using this nickname Killboy for playing online video games. I was just sitting there playing an World War II Air Warrior game, and I was like, I need a nickname for this character when I'm flying. And I was listening to a band I like called The Offspring, and they had a song called Killboy Powerhead. Not a very great song, but I thought that's a cool nickname. I'll use that. And then I registered the domain, not really knowing what it was going to be. And it was about RC cars or video games, whatever I was into. I would just kind of post on there. It was kind of blogging before blogging was a thing.
Right.
And then once I got into motorcycles, I started putting photos from my motorcycle stuff on there for friends and family to kind of keep up with what I was doing. There was no Facebook and stuff back then. But I started coming to the Dragon, taking pictures, putting them up there, talking about what was going on back then, as I was there, and writing up pretty long, stories and stuff about my weekend and what it was like there, but adding the pictures also. And people started following and started, sort of chiming in. It was like, stop by and like, hey, take my picture and put it on there. I want to download it. You can make a little money doing this, so started thinking about it. Maybe I could do this on the side. So for like 2 years, I just took pictures and put them up for free, and started getting a little bit better camera equipment, a little bit better digital cameras. And finally, after a couple of years, I had a pretty good following, and I thought I'm going to give it a shot and see if I can sell some of these. So I decided to put them from a certain point forward. I think it was June of 2003. I put them on a storefront where you could purchase the photos, and I was afraid I was going to get a lot of pushback, and people would be like, that's messed up. You're trying to make money off of this or something. I want my photos for free. But
Yeah.
people were cool. And right away, man, I started getting sales and answering emails and things like that. Got to the point within a couple of months, I couldn't do both. Like my 40-hour a week job, working on material handling, working on shipping docks,
Yeah.
and then going up and shooting on the weekends, and then trying to fill orders. And I was burning CDs and shipping CDs physically then. There wasn't
Yeah.
digital delivery back then. So it got to be too much. So within like 2 months, I quit my job and went full time on the side of the road. Got with a friend to help me get up there and make sure we were up there every weekend. And ever since then, we've been up there pretty much every weekend for sure from March to November. But now I've got a team of guys that we're out there every day from 9 to 6, March to November. And like I said, we have we shoot about 80,000 photos a week, and put all those on storage here online.
When you started doing this and turning it into a business, I mean, was it hard to explain to people what you were doing? Because it is, I mean, it's kind of bizarre when you think about it. Just, I mean, now with the internet and there's roads in California, and it's not that uncommon. But the idea that, I stand at the side of the road and take your picture, and if you want to buy it, you can go online and get it. I mean, were there moments when people just looked at you like, what are you talking about? Or was it sort of understood by those who frequented that road that did people get it or not?
Right. Some people, did get it, but a lot of people didn't. And back then, they didn't understand what we were doing. Nobody had really done this before. Roadside photography. There'd been some stuff like Daytona Bike Week usually had people there taking pictures of people on bikes as they went through. And this was at a time again where it was mostly film, and digital cameras were pretty nascent, and they were not better than film yet. So if you really wanted the best quality of work, you still used film. But there were a lot of people who drove by and were kind of like confused or didn't understand what we were doing for sure.
Did they think you were cops or surveillance? Was that ever a part of it?
I don't doubt that.
Yeah.
I think I did get that. Sometimes he's out there shooting for the police or something like that. We had killboy banner across the top of where we were sitting, so it wasn't like, I don't know, maybe they thought that was some kind of trickery or fakery or something. But for the most part, people kind of that were enthusiasts kind of understood. But it is an unusual thing once you start thinking about it. It really took me decades to click with this. What we started doing was unheard of in photography, in that we're taking photos, not prearranged. Almost all photography, there's an agreement and an understanding before the shutter clicks.
Yes.
I'm going to take your picture. You can purchase it if you want, or, maybe they've already arranged for that. But what we're doing is we're taking the picture first. We're firing first, aim, fire, and then settle up later, or, understand what's going on later. And that's unheard of. I mean, it's pretty rare to take pictures without some sort of arrangement and be successful and make a living at it. We were featured only in America on the Discovery Channel, History Channel, with Larry the Cable Guy. He traveled around the country to these unique businesses and featured them on the show, and they chose us as one of their featured businesses because what we do is so unique. But yeah, standing on the side of the road, taking pictures of strangers in the hopes that they'll find them online and buy them. So that's the other part about it. The Forest Service is cool with what we do, but there are some stipulations and there's some rules there. We cannot transact anything on the side of the road. We cannot do business on the side of the road.
Yes.
And we have to take care of the place, and they appreciate what we do in regards for documenting what comes through, because there are times when they need to know, or they're on the lookout for something or someone, and they know they can go to our photography and look through there and see if the red Ford Ranger that's been missing since Thursday came through the area, so they appreciate what we do in a sort of traffic camera type of way.
Yeah.
But we also are careful to follow their guidelines and make sure we don't cross any boundaries or cause any problems. We try to stay as far back as we can, leave the pull-offs open even, because they're not there for us. They're there for traffic, and we
Right.
appreciate that. So we try to stay out of the way. Things like that. Yeah.
Because it's such a legendary road, you've seen everything happen on this road. So let's go through a little bit of the nuts and bolts of it. I mean, I always think of the tail of the dragon as people would ride down from all over the place, from where I'm in Canada or anywhere else, and you get there and all of a sudden the pressure's on. You're on this legendary road, and God damn it, I'm going to nail every apex. So I envision that it's kind of it can be a bit of a crash fest. Now, is there any truth to that, or is that just a bad idea?
Speaking of coming from Canada, there was a group that used to come down 3 or 4 times a year from Canada just to ride that road, and a few of them would ride their bikes all the way down. And their friends up there had been were like, You're going all that way to ride 11 miles. But again, there's something about the vibe and the energy here, and it's a challenge. It's not the place to learn to ride a motorcycle, but you can learn a lot about riding a motorcycle on that road for sure. It's very rapid fire. It's almost like, I think of it like karate, left, right, left, right.
Yeah.
It teaches you very quickly how to move your bike and change directions. And I think that is beneficial. It carries over to other riding. If you suddenly need to make a direction change and you've done this road a few times and gotten that type of comfortable on your machine, then it becomes safer for you. But to come down here, you challenge yourself, but you're never going to touch any kind of capabilities of locals until you've been here for a few years. But what a lot of people like to do is to run with other people, whether it's known uh, entities or they're strangers. There's a lot of weird pressure that happens on all of us when we get behind somebody else or somebody comes up behind us and we start trying to see if we can keep up or if we
It's
can.
it's I think it's called being a man.
Yeah, well, women do it too. Uh, but
That's
yeah, I
good.
mean,
That's good to hear. I'm glad they do.
yeah, it's a thing, and it's almost always the primary contributing factor in an accident. Typically, people don't wreck when they're by themselves, and you may not know it, or if you haven't been here, or maybe you've only been here when it's busy, and you think, well, you're never by yourself out there. Yeah, there's a lot of time when it's very quiet out there, and it's not that busy. But it's almost always the case that when someone wrecks, they're like, "Yeah, I was trying to keep up with him," or "This guy came up behind me, and I was trying to stay out of his way." Uh, as far as wrecks, we see on a busy day, like a Saturday, a Friday when it's pretty busy, there's probably a good dozen or so people that go off the road. It's such a low speed road, being, you know, so many rapid tight turns. There's not much space in between turns.
What is the sign posted speed?
30 miles per
30
hour.
miles an hour.
It
Okay.
used to be 55 back in like the early 90s.
Back when men
Um,
were men. Wow.
yeah, and there weren't many wrecks or deaths. And then they lowered it to 40, and then for a couple years it was 40, and then they dropped it to 30. And honestly, there's some turns where it's hard to even go the speed limit as a
Yeah.
local. There's some tight turns there that are like 25, 22-mile-an-hour turns at a high pace. But there are places where you can definitely go much, much faster than 30. But because it's so congested with turns, you don't get these open spaces very often that allow you to really get in trouble. So there's not many guardrails. There's one real guardrail turn, which I think is for the better. I don't want to get tangled up with a guardrail on a motorcycle. I'll take my chances with trees and a drop off.
Yeah.
Um, but the wrecks where they go off the road, I'll call that an accident. There's not always much to it, but they typically get up and keep going. But obviously, we're humans. We're tough, but we're fragile. You catch the neck the wrong way, or you crack a rib and it gets a lung, you're an hour from help. And what would be a non-life threatening injury becomes a life threatening injury over time because of you know, the distance from help that we are at, and the remoteness of this area. So there's sometimes medical teams kind of in the area on standby on the weekends when it's busy, especially the Blount County Rescue Squad is all voluntary, and they are out there, on the weekends, kind of there to help as needed. And that's a lifesaver for sure. But serious wrecks with ambulatory necessity, probably once or twice a month, maybe. We see the fatality average over 20 years has been like 3 a year. Not good, but you consider how many motorcycles are out there and compared to other roads where if you put that many bikes on it, or Daytona Bike Week, again,
Yeah. Yeah.
18 fatalities in 1 week. So it's honestly a really safer place to be unless it's super busy. I don't want to be out there in the middle of the day on a Saturday, but it's way better not having cross traffic and dogs and families and stuff like that. There's not many animals. There's a
Yeah.
huge
Yeah.
forest on both sides, so the animals have no reason to be pushed into the road, and they've got all the space that they need. Plus the traffic there is kind of loud. Typically enthusiast vehicles are louder than regular traffic. So,
I've heard your Porsche SUV.
yeah, that thing.
You're keeping the animals away all by yourself, my friend. Now, what about, there's gotta be some local legends. I mean, I know it's a public road, so it's not a racetrack, but, people do have stopwatches on their phones. So, are there riders that are known to be like aces of this road?
Yeah, I mean, naturally, there's gonna be regulars and locals, and it just changes, dude. Over 20 years, it's been so many different people,
Mm.
that get into it in their peak, uh, whether it's peak physical fitness or peak interest. It's one of those things that over time, you can just get tired of. You start to sort of weigh out the risk reward thing, and you
Yeah,
say,
yeah,
"Look,
yeah.
I've I've done my thing. I'm satisfied with that. I'm not, I'm not chasing that anymore." So
Right.
you kind of back down as a local and a regular. And I've been through that phase. There's a few other locals and regulars that are pretty well known that are no longer there, and there's other younger guys that have come in, and it comes and goes. But it's not as common as a lot of people fantasize, mythicize. I don't know that there's people up there timing themselves and stuff. It's very rare that anybody's up there trying to set some kind of pace or record or something. A lot of times
Right.
it's after the fact. We might shoot a video and then realize that was a really good run. And we'll go back and look at the video and be like, oh, wow, that was only X number of minutes. Typically, if you set out to do it, you're probably not going to be able to because it's very hard to mitigate traffic.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Doing it at night's a thing. I'm more comfortable at night than I am during the day out there. And a lot of locals will tell you the same thing that nighttime is really a better time anyway. It's technically safer. You don't have to worry about people coming around blind turns in the wrong lane. Again, animals aren't super a problem, and if you're making some noise, it tends to, keep them out of the way, and you can really have the road to yourself without too much concern. And the road being a big stone, it takes it forever to cool off, right? Like the worst time as temperature goes for grip, the worst time is in the morning, right before the sun comes up. The road's as cold as it's going to be, and then all day it absorbs that energy from the sun, the heat.
Yeah.
And you can be out there at midnight, put your hand on the road, and it's still warm. It's a big
Really?
stone. So, but yeah, I mean, naturally, there's people out there who are testing themselves and regulars and locals that get it memorized. It took me a couple of years to get the road fully memorized, and you need to have it memorized in two directions. It's not like a racetrack where you only hit it from one way,
Right,
and
of
it's
course.
completely different. Some of these turns when you're going northbound versus southbound,
Yeah, yeah.
it's a lot to memorize. That until you get it fully memorized, you really can't be out there pushing yourself. You don't know what the turn does. So it takes a while. Yeah.
Well, take me through the logistics of how you run your company today. You started off as this guy doing photographs, posting it. You took us through that. Well, now you got a big business, my friend, and so take us through what Killboy is today. How many people do you have out there? How long are they out there? How many images? I mean, take me through a typical, week, say.
Yeah, a typical day for our business, our guys, like I said, they're out there every day. They have schedules that sort of overlap. So during the week, we'll typically have two guys out there, and they'll overlap midday. So we got a morning guy and an evening guy, and then on the weekends we might have a third guy that's kind of triples up in the middle to make sure we don't miss anyone. Found that usually, no matter how busy it is, as long as we have at least two guys, we almost don't miss anyone. Having a third guy is nice just so we don't miss anyone and we get extra angles. But, they sort themselves while they're shooting. So they sort the photos into categories to make it easier on the customer to find their photos. So everything on our website is posted by date and then type of vehicle, and then they're organized by time after that. So there might be a Corvette group there that day. So there'll be a Corvettes category, but there's sport bikes, touring bikes, adventure bikes, different types of cars, and then odd shots and things like that. So you click on a category and you see the photos, and then there's sliders at the top, and you can narrow down a window to look through time. So if you were there between 2 and 3 p.m., you can set the sliders to 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock, and then you'll just see the photos from that time frame.
Oh, I
Look
see.
through 'em.
Yeah, yeah.
But they all live in Tennessee and we live in North Carolina, and we need the full size photos in order to fill orders. What goes online is just a small proof, and it's an automated system through Photo Reflect, the company that we use, that uploads just the proofs, the thumbnails. And then when a person orders the photo, we actually send them and we edit the photo. We take a look at it, make adjustments as needed after they purchase it. We can't do it to all of them before they upload. It's too time consuming, and we
Yeah.
would take a week to get photos online. Um, but the guys have to get the photos to me. So that means every day they take them to the store, the Tail of the Dragon Killboy store, and drop them off there. And then we go up and pick them up and bring them home at the end of the day and get them online that night. So they're
And so
available.
this is every day,
Yep. Yep. Every day.
7 days a week.
And it's full-time job. It's full-time work for 5, 6 of us, and then part-time for a couple others. So, it's successful. We're doing well, but we also have to get through winter. It's a freaky thing if you've ever ran your own business, for one thing in general, that's not predictable, but also to be seasonal and for your income to shrivel to almost nothing for 3, 4 months out of the year. So we've got to bust ass during the summer and make it work. That's the other scary thing, when COVID happened, there was a rock slide quite a few years ago that shut the road down for a few weeks, and it's all your eggs in one basket problem. It's scary running a
Yeah, yeah.
business like that. So we're trying to be more diverse. We're working with more video, um, freelance work and things like that to try to diversify what we do, and it's been working out pretty well also. But the main meat of our income is, the photography on that road, and the guys get, I think, taken care of pretty well. They do well and live a comfortable life, drive nice, fun, interesting vehicles,
Yeah.
motorcycles and cars. And I'm happy for them. I love to see them do well and make a lot of money, so, but they have to get through winter too. And they don't work jobs during the winter. It's tricky to start and stop a job every year for the off season. So they just hustle and save up for winter like we do. And, try to use winter as their vacation time, because when you run a job like this, you don't get to do much on the weekends, especially those guys. They're out there hustling. We've got the business to the point now we can kind of step away.
Yeah.
But when I was doing it, on the side of the road, all this cool stuff happens on the weekends. There's all these events and shows and things like that. And that's the bread and butter of a tourism-based business, and
Yes.
your income is the weekend. So winter is our weekend. It's the time we get to relax, go on vacation. We'll go out west. We'll go to the Caribbean, try to enjoy some time off and away um, during that part of the year.
You've witnessed a lot of motorcycling history the last 25 years, and you're literally at the side of the road watching what changes. What about some observations on how motorcycling has changed? I mean, ADV Rider, of course, ADV style motorcycles are extremely popular now. And when you started in the 90s, sport bikes were the thing, and then they went to the Harley thing, and now ADV bikes are really popular. What are your observations from the side of the road, literally the side of the road?
Yeah, we like to say, the show comes to us out here. We really do get probably one of the best observational situations for what's going on in the industry and to see what is popular. ADV bikes have always been there. Like they weren't like a bigger part of the scene, but they were always a solid part of the scene, and adventure adventure bike seems to be one of those areas that's just sort of consistent. Everybody kind of gets in and out of some of the other stuff, and they get in and out of ADV stuff too, but everybody relates to ADV. You know what I'm saying? Like the Harley guys and the cruiser guys can see the fun in an ADV bike where they may not see the fun in a sport bike. And the sport bike guys, same. You know what I'm
Yeah, I
saying?
see what you mean. Yeah, yeah. There's
The
crossover.
ADV thing, yeah, the ADV thing is always seems to be the common denominator, the common factor among all riders. If we can all see that would be a fun thing to do versus the two extremes, I would call it, on the other end, with the cruiser and the sport bike thing being
Yeah.
a little bit less open to just everybody. But we have such good areas around here for enjoying those roads too. We've got a lot of forest roads. and not super difficult terrain. And it's unfortunate that we lost a couple of parts. I know Tellico, was a popular place and it's no longer available, but we still have a lot. We've got Windrock over in Tennessee, and then all the forestry roads and gravel roads that are pretty tame, but they're still fun, and give you a chance to sort of feel your bike out and feel your own skills out on something that's not pavement, and then good paved roads in between that are also fun, depending on your setup and how gnarly and off road you are. But yeah, I enjoy, we've got a couple of Ducati scramblers that are set up for street and a little bit more off roady. And we get out and enjoy some of these gravel roads once in a while around here. I'm really grateful to live in a place that we have such a great offering of playgrounds, and we want to take care of them and promote it responsibly and don't let it get too, blown up with
Yeah.
traffic. But so far that's been the case. It's been totally fine. You just pick and choose your days. Obviously, like I say, middle of the day on a weekend, it's going to be busier, but you can get around that if you find some days during the week and things like that.
Have you noticed a downturn? I mean, there's so much made about, baby boomers are not buying cruisers in the numbers that they used to. Harley Davidson went from this, a great power in the 90s and onward, and they're struggling now. Have you noticed a drop off in cruisers on the Dragon?
Maybe a little bit, but they're still going pretty strong, a lot of times. But yeah, there was a peak there in the, late 90s, early 2000s where they were the dominant, vehicle on the scene out here. But yeah, it's not as prominent as it used to be. They're still out there, but we see the sport bike scene has kind of bounced back a little bit. It was dwindling there for a while. And then just this past weekend we had the big ADV rally in Tellico Plains. And there was a lot of adventure bikes running around. I stopped and had lunch in town, talked to a few of those guys and things like that. But yeah, the cruiser scene, I think, there'll always be even younger people that do still enjoy that style, and they'll continue, but there's definitely sort of I think a dwindling market there, or the market has dropped a little bit on that scene, but there's still young people coming up that they dig that. And you know how things are. They come and go, and as soon as something falls out of favor, it becomes cool again to get into it. So they'll come back.
Right.
That's crazy.
Well, I was a magazine editor for a while, and one of my jobs was editing photographs from press events, and I became very particular about what a rider looks good on, how a rider looks good on a bike. There's a certain form, and you've looked at more photographs than I will ever look at of people taking a curvy road. So I want your advice. If we're going to go to the tail of the Dragon, give me some advice on how to make my photographs look really good.
The most impressive thing a rider can do, in my opinion, to look good is to stay off. Am I allowed to curse?
You can curse. Absolutely.
Stay off the fucking double yellow. Now, we all struggle as motorcyclists with this, and there are some that will argue with me till their dying day that it's unsafe to do this. But a motorcycle rider that is comfortable, leaned over, not against the double yellow to where they're leaning into oncoming traffic on the left-handers is immediately like, that person knows what they're doing. Somebody that's comfortable staying in the middle or even to the right of their lane as they go around a corner. It's so many benefits to that. You don't have to adjust anything if traffic is coming at you. It's the biggest thing I see is people like they're crouched up on the double yellow, they're going around a corner, and then a sport car comes flying around a corner and they sit up and then they go back into their turn.
Yes.
And it's just very jarring and upsetting. And of course they're mad at the car for going fast, and that's not the problem, or the bike or whatever it is. But bikes typically, if they're going around a right-hander, they're going to be on the white line on the inside of their turn. So it's not, they're not close, but a vehicle that's as wide as the lane is, that's a different story.
Yeah.
So to stay out and, lean in like that, shows a lot of competence when it comes to a motorcycle rider skill level that I see. But just, you know, be smooth. Try not to look at the camera. Don't wave at us or anything like that. We don't want any interaction with you. We just want you to go by as smooth as possible, focusing on what you're doing. Um, have some confidence, but obviously don't be overly confident.
Yeah.
And, body position is an arguable, debatable thing. I'm not going to preach about that. If you're
Well, hang on a second. Except
ahead.
don't hang your feet off the pegs like you're a duck.
With the heels on the pegs and the feet like
Well,
dragged
the feet
down
down
the road.
or the heels on with the feet out.
This road will teach you not to do that really quickly, though. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's again, it's so rapid fire. You're hardly ever upright. We wear the tires on the motorcycles almost exclusively on the sides
No,
and
that's a
almost
beautiful
none in
thing.
the middle.
That's a beautiful thing.
And so that aspect of the road being as aggressively quick to change direction as it is will teach you very quickly to get your damn feet up and get on the balls of your feet.
Yes.
ADV riders and dirt bike riders are kind of taught, or not taught, but they just naturally tend to get into body positions where they kind of lean away from the bike. And
Yep.
that causes the bike to have to lean more in a given turn at a given speed. So I understand it. I'm not saying break how you ride off road just so you can ride on road and look good. But typically, you want to try to get your shoulder down, get your head down, lean into a turn so that the bike doesn't have to lean over as far and your limits are more, forgiving because you're not pushing hard parts down to the road as quickly as if you were, off the bike pushing it down. But things like that, just lane position, focus, and then, try to be comfortable with your body position, but don't fight the bike. And if you have a passenger, they need to be leaning with you into the turn, not trying to, the irony is as a passenger leans away from the turn for their own safety, they make the situation more dangerous. They're more likely to end up on the ground by leaning away from the ground than if they just sort of embrace the lean and get closer to that ground. So there's an interesting thing about passengers on motorcycles I could get into about nausea and all that if you want to hear that.
Yeah, sure.
So that if I put you in the passenger seat of a car and we went through that curvy ass road at pace, the likelihood of you getting nausea would be increased. But there's a thing about motorcycles that almost eliminates nausea as a passenger. And we have tons of middle-aged, older-aged couples on cruiser bikes that are going through there, and the passenger lady on the back almost never gets nauseous. And if I put her in a car and we went through there, she would get nauseous. Why?
Can I guess why?
Yeah.
It's because you take the forces straight down through the middle of your body on a motorcycle, and on a car, you're sitting in a tin can and you get shoved to the side.
Yep.
Is that right?
It's G-load direction, right? It's like a roller coaster. So positive G's don't really make you sick.
Right.
Negative G's are the worst. Like if you go over a hill on a roller coaster and you almost come up out of your seat, right?
Yeah.
So somewhere in between there is lateral G load, right? And it's pulling your guts to the side.
Yes.
And the more positive of a G load you can get, the less sickness you're going to feel from it. And so we did an experiment one time. It was a Gixxer 600. And it's got a little concavity in the gas tank. And we laid a full Gatorade bottle laid down in that thing. And my friend went around the corners and stuff. As long as you didn't brake or accelerate too hard, it would roll sideways if it wanted to. It wouldn't. Motorcycle has almost zero lateral G load because it's always tilted into it so that it's pushing straight down on the tires. And that bottle of Gatorade just sat right there, laid right there on the gas tank, didn't move as he went around the corners, So it's pretty interesting to me. And it took a while to really grasp why, notice that nobody as a passenger got sick on a motorcycle, hardly ever. We have gotten a few nasty photos of like projector going off the helmet, chin bar up and down, basically on the back seat. But it's really, really rare. Whereas in cars, it's fairly common. And the other interesting thing is if it's a vehicle with with soft suspension, a car with soft suspension, like a van or a pickup truck or something, they lean the wrong way as you go around a corner, right? Think about it. They
Yeah,
lean
yeah.
away from the corner. So that's almost getting into negative G load. So it's not as nauseating to be in a stiffly sprung sports car that does not lean as much the wrong way as it is to be in something like a family sedan or a work van or something like that that has the tendency to lean the wrong way as you go around the corner and introduce that negative G load versus a motorcycle, which is the other way around. So
So
some interesting observations.
so from this, I get the sense that I should take my Ducati and not my Mercury Grand Marquis
Probably.
when
That
when I
would be a
finally
smart
when
bet.
I finally make
If
it
you're
down.
driving, it's not as bad, but as a passenger, when you don't have the control on when those inputs happen, it can be, and especially if they're not smooth. You know, a lot of people that go with us are like surprised at how comfortable they are and how not nauseous they are. And it's because we are very smooth because
Nice.
of all the repetition and we know exactly what the turn does. So we're not making, oh shit, corrections,
Yeah, yeah.
um, in the moment. Having everything memorized just makes such a huge difference. But yeah, the vehicle type does what it does out here for sure.
Well, where can we find you on the Dragon? Because you have a bricks and mortar store there. So where can we find that? Where are you
So we're
located?
partnered up with Tail of the Dragon at the on the side of the road there. So in North Carolina, just about a half a mile from the state line, the Tennessee North Carolina state line. We're across the road from the Deal Scout Motorcycle Resort, but I don't actually own any of the building or the property. That's all Tail of the Dragon. But
I
ever
see.
since the beginning, they got started with their business about the same time I was getting started with my photography business. And we met early on and was like, hey, let's work together to promote each other. So they would take my photography and post it on their website with their merchandise to promote the area. And in return, it had my logo on the photos. So the people that went to their website learned about my photography, as a result of that. So we never competed, but we worked together. And then once they got to a point where they were purchasing a brick and mortar store and some land, they were like, hey, you want us to put your logo on the store up here with our logo? And, we'll have both of our logos up here. And I was like, well, yeah, sure. And it ended up their logo is first when you read left to right, but my logo is closer to the road. So a lot of people call it the Killboy store. I don't think they really mind. It's like, I don't care as long as people come in and, check it out. So
As
we,
long as they're making money. As long as they
yeah,
spell your name right.
people, they get the name spelled right. It's kind of hard to misspell. And, but yeah, it helps bring traffic into the store. And, we have information about our photography in there and how to get it, but we don't sell photos in the store.
Yes,
Things
yes.
aren't ready in that moment. It's not like a roller coaster where you get done, come down
No, understood.
and get your shot. I wish we could, but the infrastructure and is not there and the quantity that we shoot is not there. But yeah, we're in North Carolina. And then you can also go to tailofthedragon.com and they've got the info there. Address of the store is 17055 Topeka Road, I think. But it's on Highway 129 in North Carolina, just a mile from the state line, the border there.
Right. Now, or we can go to killboy.com.
Yes, sir.
Now, just to finish things up, let's just say that I'm gonna get off my ass and finally make it down this year. When is a good time? You've seen it in all weathers and all seasons. When do you recommend to go in terms of decent weather and maybe lighter crowds, time of the week, time of the year, what season? What do you recommend?
It's one of those the most common question probably, and you're predicting crowds, which is really hard.
Yeah.
But there is some, obvious takeaway from history. And again, the meat of the day on a Saturday is always going to be the busiest time up there. And depending on how social you are, you might embrace that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying avoid it. Just come with the right mindset that you're going to hang out at the store or in one of the 105 paid pull-offs and enjoy the show and get to see some cool stuff, some crazy stuff, who knows, flashes, crashes, whatever.
Yeah.
But as far as like getting your own time on the road where you might, want to avoid all that, a lot of people suggest and aim to go out early in the morning. Well, for one thing, I'm just not a morning person, but honestly, unbiased, that's like the worst time of the day as far as pavement quality goes.
Yeah, you were saying cool pavement in the morning.
Yeah, it's gonna be the coldest it's gonna be probably at that point.
Yeah.
And a lot of people aim to get out early and beat the crowd, and then they just become the crowd. We see this even in the months, thing, like we get a lot of business early in the season, and then it dies off mid-season. Everybody's trying to beat the rush. They think it's
It
gonna be
becomes the
busy
rush,
June,
yeah.
July, and August, and it's really not that busy in June, July, and August. It's hot, but, April, May are sometimes some of the craziest times of the year, so it doesn't matter. It could be the busiest days are like Memorial Day and Labor Day. Those are huge, do what you wanna do holidays, right? A lot of these other holidays, people think July 4th is nuts out there. It's not. It's surprisingly quiet on July 4th. A lot of people are doing family stuff. They have things planned. It's not a sort of do what you want to do type of holiday, I could think. Um, but no matter how busy it is, typically at around 5 p.m., 6 p.m. until sunset, later, midnight, is like the best time to be out there. And people are gonna be like leaving comments being like, "Just don't tell them that." Like I always get bitched at for saying this, and helping people uh, find that better time. But me personally, if I'm not doing it at night, and I understand that's not everybody's tea, that's not everybody's cup of tea to go out at night. But if you can get out there at night, especially with a buddy, it's not a great thing to do by yourself at night. If something happens and you go off, there's not much cell service, and you need some help.
Yeah.
Use GPS trackers and things like that if you're by yourself riding. I know ADV riders sometimes do a lot more riding by themselves in sketchy situations, and I know most of y'all know spot trackers will save your fucking life.
Yeah.
But late day, 5, 6 p.m., most people have ridden all day while it was busy and, shot their shot, and they're ready to go get a drink, get some food, get super tired, and go nap and get up early in the morning to try and beat the crowd again and become the crowd. So yeah, 5, 6 p.m. If you can take a break during the day, if you have a cabin or a hotel, I used to come down, ride a little bit early, and take a siesta from like, noon, 1 p.m. until 3 or 4, and get a little nap in there so I have good energy and good, clear mind, and then get back out around sunset and ride until midnight. Those are like the best times to ride, even on the busiest Saturday. But during the week, it's not that bad. Monday through Thursday, unless there's some kind of big event going on. There's a calendar on Tell of the Dragon that has, the events that we know that are happening, so you can kind of get an idea of what might be going on. But again, you're predicting crowds. It's really hard.
It's
But
really hard, yeah.
Monday through Thursday are the obvious things. Avoiding midday, if you really don't want to be around other people, is the thing to do, the obvious stuff. And then Sundays aren't that busy either. A lot of people think they would avoid, they would choose a Tuesday over a Sunday. Tuesday's a weird day of the week, by the way. I hear so many people say the word Tuesday that it's become a busy day. And it's something about that day of the week just clicks with being not popular, but it's becoming more popular to be out there on a Tuesday. But yeah, Sundays, everybody's typically going home to be at work in the morning. So their vacation was, maybe like Thursday through Sunday. And so they might get out early Sunday, but then from midday to late day Sunday, it just dies off. And that's if you're able to plan a vacation or, your time here through Monday or through Tuesday. So maybe you do Saturday through Tuesday instead of Thursday through Sunday, then you can catch that window where things are shifting and the old previous week's tourists are going home and the next week's tourists aren't here yet. So, midday Sunday to Tuesday, Wednesday is usually pretty much the slower time. And then, of course, time of the year, July is not very busy. August is not very busy. And then we get the leafers, the leaf crowd coming in October, November, and it gets busy again during that time.
All right. So killboy.com, keep your toes in and stay off the double yellow. And Darryl, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
That's all for this week. Thank you for listening to the Lowdown Radio Show.